Hello and welcome to Lunch Break. I'm your host, Rhea Hughes. I'm joined by Andrew Culp from the 700 Level, writer who's writing all kinds of great stuff on the Eagles. And I figured I wanted to get somebody on to talk about the sexy new person who's RG3. I wanted to get Andrew on. He's got a couple of great stories we're going to talk about him. Our lunch menu lineup for today is A to Z. And that's all of the quarterback situations we have going on now, which is from Michael Vick to Kafka to Trent Edwards to RG3. And then tag me. The tag deadline's coming up. I believe it's Monday. Are the Eagles going to tag Deshaun? Or are they going to go in another direction? And it's Twitter Tuesday, so we have an Eagle who's got into a little bit of a tiff. It's Twitter wars every day. They're like, should be, instead of reality TV shows, there should be Twitter wars. You wrote a thing on the 700 Level yesterday talking about, the moves the Eagles have kind of made, and it's clear Vince Young is gone. Explain to me what you think the Trent Edwards signing was about.
Well, I think he's a good developmental prospect to bring in. I mean, he has NFL experience. He can push Mike Kafka.
Was it more just about Kafka? Pushing him a little bit?
I think so,
yeah.
But, maybe he could be their third quarterback or...
Why didn't he play in the league last year? That's the one thing that's very interesting. It's not like there's, tons of great NFL talent, at least to be a backup on somebody's team.
Well, I don't really know the answer to that. I mean, he, was with the Raiders, and they had a unique quarterback situation
I like
there,
that,
as
unique.
always.
That's a good way to put it.
So, I mean, David Garrard just spent the year out of the league. Donovan McNabb, nobody wanted him.
No.
I mean, so...
And he's looking for somebody to give him work. So.
Sure, exactly. So, there's all kinds of reasons why. I mean...
So, all right, so they bring in Trent Edwards, they got Kafka, they have Vick. The Eagles, were you surprised to hear the Eagles met with RG3 at the Combine last week?
I was a little bit at first,
okay.
But then, that's the kind of thing the Eagles do. I mean, if there's a good player out there.
Are you falling into they're just doing due diligence, or do you think there's any chance they would mortgage the house to get him?
Well, I think it's mostly due diligence, but I think it's definitely
fun
possible.
To talk about.
Well, it's fun to talk about, and I think it is possible. I think they are going to have the picks, and they're going to, be able to, I don't know if the Rams will want to move back that far is probably the biggest thing. But
the Eagles do have tons of picks.
And then I think they'll have more if they trade Asante Samuel, Deshaun Jackson, so
they could add to it. I mean, would you do that? Do you think this year, just because of the situation Andy Reid's in, that a lot of people, I'm not one of them, think it's a make or break year because I think he's never going anywhere. That's just my opinion. But do you think that the Eagles just need to go for help that they need at other positions, not grooming a quarterback for the future?
Well, I mean, that's what I would do. I would, try to fill immediate needs, but at the same time, I don't feel like they have that many. I mean, linebackers obviously a glaring hole, and then
it's been a hole for 13 years. It's not something we're not used to.
Sure, but if they can do something about that, I mean, if you look at their roster, what else is of some people would say safety, but they have a bunch of young safeties, so I don't know what else.
Would you like them to go for a linebacker if one of the top stud guys that are talked about is there at their pick?
I like the kid from Boston College.
Apparently had a great workout yesterday. Everybody was real thrilled with that.
So, I mean, I would like that. I know a lot of people want them to go free agency there, but they could do both, too.
Yeah, they could do. Well, they throw money around like they did last year. All right, the Deshaun Jackson, the deadline is Monday, right, to tag? Yep. Would you tag him? Well, let me ask you that first. Would you tag him?
I definitely would, yeah.
For just 1 year?
I mean, if you can work out a long-term deal, I don't get the sense that that's going to happen, though.
So a tag for 1 year. I mean, because that's kind of how I think I'm going. All right, if essentially this is really, it was a 2-year deal that Michael Vick signed. Right. So, if he can't find a way to stay healthy, they're going to move on from him after this season. So to me, it would make the most sense to just bring Deshaun back and see what they can do together for 1 year.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree, and I also think it gives Deshaun a chance to rebound, and maybe he can
showcase himself a little bit better than he did last year.
And put to rest the attitude issues, and then maybe they can find a common ground and work something out. If it works out, and if it doesn't, then he's gone. Okay,
if it doesn't, you also did a story on the 700 Level about some of the other wide receivers who are out there. You kind of the first two guys. They're probably not, they're probably going to stay with their teams. You and I are both in favor of one guy, and that's Colston from the Saints. What do you like about him the best?
Well, he just puts up numbers every year, and he's really big. I mean, I actually took a lot of guff in my fantasy league for drafting him this past year because of the injuries.
Well, you took it from Ben. One of our producers was ripping you too. Well, and that is a concern, but he still puts up numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know offhand what he had this year, but it was like 80 catches and over 1,000 yards.
Actually, I was looking at what you had. I went and downloaded your story. 80 receptions, 1,143 yards. He averaged 14 yards catch and 8 touchdowns.
I mean, and he missed at least 3 games, I think. So.
Well, what I find intriguing about Colston is that he's getting the ball thrown to him by a quarterback who's about the same height as Michael Vick.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what makes Brees so much better is his targets are bigger. And that is something that Vick has struggled with.
Well, I've always said, through the years that if you look at the top 10 guys in touchdowns, 7 of them are always,
big dudes.
They're always 6'3" or taller. So, I mean, there's definitely a lot to be said for that.
Deshaun is a home run hitter, and it's a nice luxury to have. But if you could get a guy like Colston, you would prefer him over Deshaun?
I think if you could draft a guy like Colston, I think I'd prefer that. I mean, I kind of, if they're really going for broke this year, I kind of like the idea that Deshaun knows the system. And I like what he does for the rest of the offense, too. I mean,
you look at the numbers. I know Reuben Frank did something on CSN Philly. Jeremy's numbers in the 3 or 4 games that Deshaun missed were, obviously way down.
Sure.
And we saw it in the Arizona game. I mean,
it's not just the receivers, but, Brent Selleck and even LaShawn McCoy. I mean, when do you see a safety in the box to...
It changes everything. And, we'll see what happens with... Well, today is Twitter Tuesday. We like to pick out some fun tweets. And, unfortunately, Eagles linebacker Brian Roll was watching the Combine, took to Twitter, and he put, "These linebackers are weak." That's Roly-Poly36 is Brian Roll. Somebody tweeted back to him and they said, "Well, that seems to be what the Eagles' weakness is." Then he tweeted back to them. I know we don't have that up there, but he tweeted back, "What team do you play for?" Which is always the mature way to handle it. And then somebody went back to him, "Where do the Eagles rank this year?" After he had received some criticism, Brian decided that this will be his last week here on Twitter, since some individuals feel as though we athletes aren't humans with opinions and feelings. I'm just going to ask you, if Brian took to Twitter to rip other athletes, it's kind of tit for tat, right? If somebody came back at him with the opinion that, Eagles' weakness is that.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, actually, it's 100% true. I mean,
he's ripping linebackers, so I mean, it was just kind of funny that he didn't want other people to rip him, but he was ripping fellow athletes.
That's what I don't like about Twitter. I mean, it's people don't think before they...
No, and it's generally not a good... I use it, I have fun with it, but I try to stay out of Twitter wars because there's nothing to gain from it. No. And I have a bit of a hot temper. So, all right, I want to thank Andrew Culp from the 700 level for joining us on lunch break. Coming up later on Comcast Sportsnet at 5 o'clock, AT&T Daily News Live, Wells Fargo Sports Night at 6. We've got the Sixers pregame. They are at the Pistons, followed by postgame, then Toyota Sports Night. Busy night here on Comcast on the Comcast Network. Flyers are at the Sharks at 10:30. Thanks for joining us on lunch break. Have a great day, everybody.